Cody.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Alex Tanner here. I am live with Frank Viscuso, and we're going to be doing episode 17 here of Talkin Shop with Outlier Firefighters. Chief, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it, and we're going to have a lot of fun today.
Oh, for sure. Alex, thank you for the invite. I'm looking forward to a good conversation.
Yeah, and we were just green rooming all sorts of stuff here, not even fire related. So I'm
No, I
hoping...
think we talked about movies, we talked about music, we talked about dogs, we talked about decks and pools.
Yeah, which we'll get back to the pool because you did say that you had some leadership tie, I think you were saying, to the work that was getting done in your house. And
Yeah.
I want to hear that story. So, well, we'll kind of just get started with things. So Kearney Fire Department, right? You were the deputy chief when you retired, if my knowledge is correct, right?
Yeah, that is correct.
And how long
Yep.
did you serve?
Oh gosh, just under 27 years, and it's really interesting because um, I got on with a gentleman now about 30 years ago, and yesterday, my wife and I, and my mother-in-law and my kids, we went out to grab some lunch, and we walk into a place, and who's sitting there? One of the guys that I got on the job with, who retired around the same time I did, and ran up and had a great conversation with him. And we talked about two things. We talked about how happy we were we chose the job, and how great retirement actually is, even though neither one of us are retired, just from that. But also how much you miss the kitchen table at work, because there's a lot of fun. We have a very unique job. It's a very tough job, a very demanding job, a very rewarding job. At the same time, it's unlike any other job out there. With the amount of downtime you have, it could be a fantastic culture, or it could be a very challenging, difficult culture, depending on the pieces you have. And what's interesting is this: you can have one group on the same department, one group at one station that loves coming to work. You could have another group at another station, on the same group even, at another station, that hates coming to work. It's the same job, just different people. So, and maybe that's something we could talk about in a little bit during this, is that, the people you surround yourself with really ultimately create your culture, and what you do and do not accept and allow.
Yeah.
On a daily basis.
I think that that's something that a lot of people, myself included, I think that's a lot of what people kind of chase. Maybe not chase, but we're looking for. And that was kind of the foundation of why I did what I did with having this platform in a podcast and social media, was to try to gather people together that felt that way, that needed a connection with other people. And I think now more than ever, and I'll say my little soapbox and then we'll get back to you, but I think now more than ever, we're really at a point where those connections are so easy to find, where you can surround yourself with awesome people that are nowhere near you. Like, years ago, yeah, we could have probably had this conversation, but not in the same way that we're gonna. And
Yeah,
it's pretty incredible what's happening.
it's very interesting you say that, because it's true. You can connect through social media, platforms like this. You can connect with people worldwide, and I've had tremendous conversations with people that my father, like for example, I had Carly Lloyd on my podcast. 2015 World Cup champion, scored 3 goals in a game. This was back when there was a lot less controversy with the U.S. women's national team, because they were just a great team back in 2015. And I had her on my podcast, and a buddy of mine says, "How did you get her on your podcast?" I said, "I asked her." He says, "But how do you know her?" I said, "I don't know her. I went to her Instagram page. I left a message. I had to go through someone to get to her, but ultimately connections could be made very easily." That being said, social media also has a very negative side, as you know, because everybody, like, what's the quote by Tyson? Everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face.
Yep.
Well, it's easy to have an opinion until you're face to face with that person. And everybody is very, very harsh with their opinions these days.
Yeah.
Very harsh. And on social media, everybody, the keyboard warriors, the keyboard commanders are very brave. And so there's a very dark and negative side, as you know, to social media as well. But yes, the connection and the ability to connect with people is there.
Yeah. I mean,
Cody, Come here.
Us connecting is the same thing. I think you put out in your social media. How do you get Frank on your podcast? Email him. Okay.
And you did.
And I
And you
did.
did. Yeah.
So like it's really to me that's the most uplifting thing right now is I do have guys that I'm close with at my job, but that circle is starting to get bigger. It's starting to become much more than just even my county in Illinois. Like it's really cool to be part of that. We're really on like the upswing right now, and it's exciting. It really is.
Good.
So what was your first exposure to the fire service?
Oh man, first of all, it was the only exposure I really had growing up because my dad was a firefighter, and I just knew, it was every day, that he was going to work, and shifts were different back then. It was 10-hour days, 2 10-hour days in a row, then 1 day off, then 2 14-hour nights in a row, and then 3 days off. And so, but when I got old enough to kind of know that my dad was a firefighter, at that point he was working steady days, and so he was off to work every day, and he worked as a firefighter / carpenter because they had their own carpenter, they had their own electrician, they had all these people that did jobs, mechanics. So, and now a lot of departments don't have them within the department anymore, but we did back then. And he'd have a company vehicle, so I'd see that, coming home sometimes at night, and I'd go to the fire department to visit my dad. My brother grew up wanting to be a firefighter. That's all he wanted to be, was a firefighter. All he talked about. Me, you and I kind of talked about this before the podcast. I don't know what I wanted, but I thought it'd be really cool to be involved in like music or art or something like that. I had more of a creative side to me, and I guess that's where the book writing came from years later. But I was an athlete in college. I received a scholarship to row at the University of Charleston out in West Virginia. And while I was out there, I come back for a break. And my brother is training in the backyard for the firefighter exam. It's a physical exam. The first part's a physical exam. So he's got a weighted vest on. He sets up his own obstacle course, and he's going through it in the backyard. And I'm in the house looking out the window watching him, and I'm like, what's he doing? My dad's like, he's taking a firefighter exam. You should take it too. And when's the exam? And he tells me, and I thought, well, what would I don't know if I want to be a firefighter. He says, well, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but it's good to take it so you have options. So that was the first seed that was planted. All right, so maybe I have an option. I don't know, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't do it. But what really made me do it was when my brother came in, he's sweating, he worked out, he's like, what's up, bro? I'm like, hey, man, how are you? I'm back from college. It's good to see you, that kind of stuff. And he says, yeah, you ought to try this. This is a tough workout. And I'm like, I'm a college athlete. I mean, I'm in the best shape of my life. And if you know anything about rowing, you're talking like, depending on the length of the race, 4 to 6 to 12 minutes, depending on of straight out full effort. And I said to him, I would crush you on that course, because brother competition.
Yeah.
He says, prove it. So I actually signed up to take the test. And I'm thinking, more than anything, all I want to do is beat my brother. And then that's going to give him a better chance to get the job, by the way, because I'm just going to probably turn it down because I don't know what I want to do. Well, the best thing I ever did, Alex, was I let him go first. And this is my strategy. Because when they call the Viscusos up, hey, man, you go first. So I get to watch him do the obstacle course, and he was so fast that I thought, oh, man, I don't know if I could beat him. But I saw one particular place where he went faster than everybody else, and it was this, you had to take a hose, run, connect the hose. You had to grab a ladder, go through cones with the ladder, then put the ladder back on a rack. You had to crawl under a bunch of horses. I have no idea what that had to do with firefighting. But when everybody crawled at the length of a gym under these horses, they were crawling. He was running on his hands and knees. And I said, I need to do that to beat him. The long and short of it is, when the results came out, he beat me. but I went fast enough to get offered the job too. And I'm so grateful because it was the best thing that could have happened to me. I didn't know it then. And often, when I see people that are struggling early on in a career and they're saying, I don't know if I want to do this. There were pockets of times, and I talk about this in my seminars, there were pockets of times throughout my career where I didn't know if I still wanted to stay here. Well, maybe I should do this or this or this. But the words of my father always stayed in my head, which is, hey, man, take it so you have something to fall back on, so you have options. And I'm like, well, I'll do some things on my times off to fulfill that creative side of me that was kind of feeling suppressed. And that ultimately led to writing books, which ultimately led to public speaking and what I do today, which is training firefighters and trying to help build cultures within organizations. And that's the long version of it. But it wasn't, I mean, I'm the son of a firefighter, but I wasn't a guy that dreamt of becoming a firefighter. I'm just a guy that's grateful that I made the decision to try because it is the greatest job on earth.
I feel you. I'm a second generation myself, and my dad was very good about not forcing it at us, but there was some subconscious influence about growing up around the fire station, and it just I went for a ride along when I was a late teenager, and it made sense. It clicked. I have two other brothers that are not in the fire service, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with them or anything like that, but they would not have succeeded in the fire service in the same way that I think your brain just kind of clicks with it, right?
Right.
They're great at what they do. The fire service wasn't their path, and so my dad didn't really push us in that direction. He let us figure it out, and yeah, it's really cool when it clicks, and it sounds like that's what happened for you. Is it just it clicked?
It took some time. Some time, but eventually it does click, and you're like, this is a really, really. I mean, first of all, it's a cool job. All right, let's just get that out of the way. It's a cool job, but it's a demanding job, and you have to kind of search yourself and say, how far am I willing to go if I have to go there? And because the stakes are high, and when you come to terms with what you are willing to do, well, then it becomes a job. All right, I'm good here, man. I'm good here. But it's not a job that's for just anybody, and that's the hard part with today's society, though, is because I don't know if a lot of people are looking for an easy way. It's not quite what I see. I think people are just expect things to be given to them or to be received more simple in a way that hey, you know what? I don't have to work that hard. But I'm teaching my kids right now, you have to work hard. This is summertime right now that we're recording this, right? My kids didn't go back to school yet. I have a workbook in there for the grade they're going into that every day they have to do a math and a reading lesson. And I didn't tell them this just this week. I said, look, both of you have 12 pages left. And the reward now that I'm going to give you $50, spend whatever you want on. And there's tests at the end of the book. And I might give them the ability to earn more money by taking the tests at the end of the book, which isn't really the requirement. I want them to do the lessons. But I'm explaining to them that because they hate the workbooks. Why do we have to do this? No one else has to do this. I mean, they're 12 and 14, right? Why do we have to do this? Well, you have to do this because I want to give you an advantage. The advantage is this: if you work harder than other people, like they do in sports, if you work harder than other people, you get opportunities that other people don't get because you earn the opportunities. I don't remember the name of the program, but just yesterday we received the mail. Both of my boys were accepted into this pretty cool program. It's a leadership program in their school. And they're both nonchalant about it. What's cool about this leadership program, it's not anything they applied for. It's things that both of them, their teachers recommended them for. And I was saying, it's based on your behavior. It's based on how you treat other people. It's based on your attitude, your effort. And they're saying that you are an example of what they feel a leader should be. And you can help the other kids that are now coming into your school reach that level, almost kind of mentor them. They don't understand this, but I said, you guys don't get, this is a great compliment that your teachers are giving you. But those are the types of things that I want my kids to understand. If you work hard, if you treat people right, opportunities there, but also understand this, nothing is going to be given to you. And I tell them that all the time. No one is coming to hand you what you want. You have to go earn it. That means that when things get tough, you have to actually say to yourself, how bad do I really want this? And if you want it bad enough, you have to be tougher than that thing that's trying to prevent you. I heard somebody say, I hope I can remember the quote. Um, he said, anything you want in life, there's going to be someone or something standing in between you and that thing. You have to want it more than they want to prevent you from getting it. So if you ever lose your will to fight, someone who still has the will to fight will control you. And I never forgot that sentiment.
Yeah, it's powerful.
If you ever lose your will to fight, somebody who has the will to fight will control you. So you have to fight for the things you want. And fighting doesn't mean always fighting.
Yeah.
It means just not giving up or giving in.
That's, yeah. That school program. So how did that, I've never heard of anything like that about, I mean, my school had, maybe if they were in sports or something, that
Right.
leadership was talked about, but that's interesting. So that's just like something that the school comes up with, and then they
Yeah,
pick kids.
it's a new program. I don't know enough about it. Matter of fact, later this month they're doing some kind of an orientation where they're inviting the kids in to explain to them more about it. And I told them it's a great opportunity because somebody sees value in you.
Yeah.
That's the key. Somebody sees value in you, and you don't. I think this, and Alex, from a little bit that we've got to know each other, I think that you would agree with me that a person will rise or fall to meet your level of expectation. If you are in a leadership position, if you're a mentor, if you're a teacher, if you're a captain, and you see value in a new person that comes into your organization, and you breathe that life into them, man, this is, I know you got a lot of potential, your upside potential, and that can go a long way. If somebody feels, hey man, somebody sees value in me, and I'm explaining that to my kids, somebody saw value in you for this. And the best part is, I'm sure that quite a few of their friends have received the same letter because they have a lot of really great friends, that treat people right, are really good students, but take care of each other. And I hope that continues.
Yeah, that's awesome. Especially at a young age, I can sit here and be totally honest that I didn't find discipline. I didn't find those things in my life until later, and had something come along at that age in school. It's not like I was forgotten about or anything like that, but that's pretty cool that they picked them out and they give them an opportunity to feel valued and like they belong. Like those are all
Right.
big cultural things that make sense
I also,
for us later,
I also
right?
think this though, as a parent, or make a big deal out of those things
Yeah.
too. When or when people around you, I don't know what it is, man. I think there's so maybe this is my experience growing up, but from people that I talked to, I think it's a lot of people's experience. There's a lot of jealousy. There's a lot of envy in this world. I'm not immune to it. I have growing up, I was kind of a jealous kid. I would see people that had things I wanted, and I'm going, you just pick anything, something that I wanted. Oh, I wish I had that. Whether it be, hey, a nicer car, a better job, more money, a prettier girlfriend, honestly, anything. And I'd be a little jealous, thinking, you know what, I wish I was more successful. I wish I was this. I wish I was that. Because I was making the terrible, terrible mistake of comparing myself to other people. And what I stopped doing a long time ago was comparing myself to other people. Now I compare myself to who I was yesterday or a week ago or a month ago or a year ago. Am I a better version of myself today? Some days I can answer absolutely yes. Some days I say, no, Frank, you're not having a good day,
Yeah.
but don't compare yourself to other people. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday.
I love that. That's yeah. I can't even elaborate on that, right? You're spot on. I 100% agree. So You get exposed to the fire service you're in. A little bit of insight on your career path of how you progress through your department or wherever to the end essentially, or not the end, but you know what I mean, to retirement.
Right.
How did you get through? I love your story about how you became the training officer. I think it's awesome. I've heard it a few times now,
Yeah.
but I
Thanks.
mean, feel free to share that again too in the same way. But how'd you go
Hey,
through your
listen,
career?
well, everybody can have their own version of that story
Yeah.
because there's other people involved. But for me, I vividly remember everybody saying, "Hey, you know what? The training captain at the time was getting promoted, and everybody said, "Hey, did he talk to you yet? Did he talk to you yet?" No. What talk about what? No, he's trying to find somebody to go in the office. Oh, I don't want it. I don't want it either. Nobody wants it. Oh man, I remember one day I'm in a room and he walks into the room, the training officer, and one of the captains sees him and goes, "Nope, not interested," and walked in the other direction, walked away. And he came up to me. He says, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "We're looking for somebody that might be interested in taking a job as a training officer, and I was wondering if you were interested." And I remember thinking right here, I don't want to be rude like that other guy just was. I'm definitely not interested, but I just said, "Well, what does a training officer do?" He said, "Well, he talked about the duties and the skills needed for that position." And right off the bat, skills I didn't feel I possessed. So after a small conversation, I said, "I appreciate you asking, but I don't think it's for me." Well, next day I come to work. My chief calls me in the office. He says, "Congratulations." I said, "On what?" He said, "You're our new training officer." I said, "Me? Why me?" He said, "You showed the most interest." I was like, "Wait, is this serious? Really? What do I do? I don't know what a training officer does." And so I actually went to my brother and I'm like, "Joe, I just got assigned to the training division." He's like, "Oh, that's great." I'm like, "What do you mean great? I have no idea what to do." He goes, "Well, what do you think we need?" I go, "What do we need as a department?" I said, "Well, Joe, we have four different groups. It's like we have four different departments." And that's just something we said all the time. And with every department around us would say it. "Oh, what group you on?" "Oh, yeah, what department?" "What department on what group?" "Wait, if there's four different groups, there's four different departments," because people did things differently. And I guess that was based on who was the deputy of that group or who was the leader of that group and what they did allow and what they didn't allow. And because standards are set differently in at every fire station, really, whether you want to admit that or not, standards at every fire station are different. So he says, "Oh, that's great." I said, we have four different departments." He's like, "What do you think you could do to change that?" I said, "I don't know. We don't even have any SOPs." He goes, and we had medical SOPs. We had no fire related SOPs. He says, "Why don't you write them?" I said, "I don't know how to write them." He goes, "Frank, it's easy. You go to Phoenix Fire Department's website, print theirs out, put our name on top. You just wrote one." He said, "We share information in the fire service." I said, "If it's that easy, how come no one's ever done it?" He says, "I don't know, but they're not you." The long and short of it is, before I retired, I'd written somewhere between like around 60, maybe 70 SOPs. I mean, I can't take credit for a lot of them because a lot of them was I'm grabbing information from other sources and just revising it a little bit. Some of them I created right out, of just doing my own research, which is basically, and this is an interesting thing, Alex, I've written 10 books now, published books. I have other books that aren't published yet, but I have 10 published books. And a lot of them are based on leadership and team development. And when you're doing a leadership book, you're doing research. When you're doing a team building book, you're doing research because you know what you want to say. And maybe you have a story in your own life that an influential story that can help make this point. But you also want to back it up with some things of where it worked in other areas, in other arenas. And so I do research. And writing books, the ability to write books really ultimately came from me learning how to write standard operating guidelines. Writing SOGs came from me being assigned to a position I didn't want. That happened because I just asked the question, what does a training officer do? Because I didn't want to be rude. That one question, if you really track it down, led to the lifestyle I was able to create for my family today, and which I'm grateful for. And when I say lifestyle I was able to create, what I mean is just to be able to do the things you want to do. Like yesterday, what did my kids? My kids wanted to go to the water park. My wife took them to the water park. I stayed, sent out some emails, created some stuff for a new class I'm doing, um, And then a friend called and said, "Hey, what are your kids doing tonight?" I said, "I think we're going to go to the boardwalk for dinner." And the friend said, "You want to go see the Savannah Bananas?" I'm like, I mean, I think my kids would love that. Well, ask them. I got 2 tickets. So I call my wife. You want kids want to go to Savannah Bananas? She's like, yeah. So we take the kids to the Savannah Bananas. We end up all going in watching it. Uh, like we have the ability every given on any given day, unless I'm speaking, which I do 60 times a year. But we have the ability to do the things we want to do, and a lot of that came from that position of the training officer. That had nothing. Listen, being able to make a difference in my department was the key. Being able to write the SOPs and create training programs and opportunities to train, all that stuff. That was the value of that position, making your department better. But there's things that can happen in your life if you make yourself better too. And to make yourself better, you got to step outside of your comfort zone. That's something I wasn't good at when I was younger, but I enjoy doing today.
Yeah, I'm living that. I feel you. When I'm 33, and I'm just starting to really kind of, in the last maybe 5 years or so, figuring that out. That stepping out of your comfort zone, being vulnerable, trying different things, those all lead to greater things. Like
Yep.
the first domino that you flicked to get to where you are. It's incredible. You would never connect those two in the moment, but when you get to look back at it.
Yeah, it's like I like what you just said. It's like a domino.
Yeah.
I'm putting this one down right now, and I don't even know if this is the direction I want to go in. But well, wait, we just made a turn here. I like that direction, and that came from here.
Yeah.
I'm not a person that would say don't say no to an opportunity. What I will say is don't say no too quickly. Think about it. And if you're not sure, if what's keeping you from an opportunity is you don't know if you would be good at it, but you do think it could be good for you, then take the opportunity, take it, do something with it because no one knows it. I had someone that told me recently, I just took the captain's exam and I came out high. I think I'm going to get promoted, but now I'm nervous. I don't know if I'm going to be a good captain. I said, nobody knows if they're going to be a good captain until you are a captain. Nobody knows if they're going to be a good deputy until they are a deputy. Nobody knows if they're going to be a good manager in their company, until they get to a position where they're actually leading people. But that doesn't mean you can't educate yourself and learn. And I think for me, the best part is like you need to be humble. And man, if you were to say to me, Frank, if you can go back and change anything about what you did in your life, would you do it differently? Man, I don't know anybody I mean, listen, let's put it this way. Would I do it differently? Yes, because I would have done it with more confidence. I would have done it with more confidence. Confidence meaning this, knowing that I don't have to be perfect. I was too hard on myself. Where things end up could be really good for you, even if you make mistakes along the way, because you learn to adapt. If you don't learn to adapt, that's where things can end up bad for you or me or anybody. So just adapt, learn, grow, change, step out of you're not growing in your comfort zone. You're growing when you step outside of it. And if you make a mistake, everybody does. Everybody on the planet makes mistakes. I make them daily. Probably made 2 or 3 in this conversation already.
I don't think so, but I will say, I think you're talking directly to so many firefighters feel that way, right? And we've all dealt with that imposter syndrome in a way, or that am I ready to do this kind of feeling. I know it's a regular conversation at my job. Our turnover rate is huge right now, and we're about to go from a collection of mostly within the last 10 years of their career to mostly the beginning 5 years of their career. There's a huge
And is that a natural turnover because of retirements?
Yes.
Or people just go, okay.
Yeah, it's
Because I recently talked to somebody from a department that said, we're losing a lot of firefighters. So what do you mean losing? To retirements? No, we're losing them to other fire departments, or they're just leaving altogether after their first year. And so we're in the process of hiring. I said, well, back up. Before you hire more firefighters, you need to work on finding out why they're leaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's the key. But yeah, it's a job. And what's interesting about our job that a lot of people don't realize is this. Oftentimes, we lose pockets of people at a time. And there's several reasons for that. When one firefighter reaches that point where they choose to retire, they're not, a lot of times they were hired with 8 other people or 6 other people, and sometimes 15 other people or more if it's a very large department, 65 people, But so now you have 8 people that are eligible to retire, but you also have people that hadn't retired yet that were eligible for the past 5 years. And sometimes there's a snowball effect, or sometimes there's something happen politically where they're looking to make cuts to an organization or pension or benefit reform. And so people are like, I want to preserve what I have. I'm leaving, and there's a mass exodus, and you have, 18% of an organization leave. I've seen it. 18% of an organization leaves at once, and then all of a sudden, the people that have only 10 years on a job become the senior members overnight.
Yeah.
Overnight. So sometimes you lose a lot of people just naturally. And we have to be ready for that too, by the way. And that's why mentorship and preparation are so important.
Oh yeah, yeah. You got to be already preparing people for that job long before they even get put in those positions. But like you're getting at, that mass turnover, that mass swing happens, and I personally know firefighters in that early stages of the career that now are kind of getting tasks with things where they feel like they're not ready, but like when you are able as a friend to look at them from the outside in and go, dude, you're totally ready for this. Have some confidence in yourself. Like that.
Yeah.
That's a common thing that I see in firefighters. Like, dude, just go do it. You'll figure it out.
I was doing a class one time. Ironically enough, chapter 3 of my newest book, Flashpoint, Ignite Your Team and Forge a Winning Culture, is the book. And in chapter 3 of that book, I talk about the importance of taking action. And because I set it up in chapter 1 and chapter 2, where I talk about set your expectations in chapter 1, prepare for victory in number 2, chapter 3 has one word in it: go. Go. Just take action. It's time. I mean, you'll learn more by doing than you will by sitting and trying to prepare. I'm one day was brought in to work with a group of 6 deputy chiefs. 4 of them are on the line. One's in administration, and one was in operations. And I'm working with these deputy chiefs, and I said, look, before we go further, we're like a couple hours in, we take a break. Before we go further, I said, I want to ask you guys, every one of you, to tell me what you think is the best quality about another deputy in this room. I don't care who goes first. I don't care who you choose, but I want each one of you to pick one and say, this is his best quality. And I don't care if he's a great family man. He cares. He's got a big heart, or he's the most knowledgeable person I know, or if it's the hardest working person. Whatever it is. And so we go through the room, and I hear great stuff. And I could tell that everybody that was hearing something great about themselves was surprised to hear it. Like, wow, you think that way of me? What really I found interesting was one of the deputies says about another one, he's the smartest person I've ever met. Anytime I have a question, he has the answer. If he wasn't a firefighter, he'd probably be, an attorney or doing something where, where a doctor, you really have to be intelligent to be successful at a really good one. He said, well, we're happy to have him, but I'll tell you, as from a knowledge standpoint, I've never met it. And this deputy looks at him and he says, wow. I said, how does that make you feel? He says, I don't think I'm smart at all. I said, really? He says, yeah. He goes, what I don't know is so much bigger than what I do. And one of them said, that's why you're smart, because you're always trying to close that gap.
Yeah.
But what I took away from that is this, and I told this deputy that I said, well, just so you know, I work with that organization every year. I go in and I do leadership training with their deputies or their new recruits every single year, or their officers in general. I've worked with all. So every year I do at least one, sometimes two different 4-day sessions to cover everybody. And I said, just so you're aware, I have been told that about you more than once, that you're intelligent. And he goes, I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm glad people see me that way. It's just not how I see myself. So sometimes you don't even see your own strength, your own best quality that other people do. And I think that's the humility that I think that will make a smart person continue to be smart, or a successful person continue to do what they needed to do to become and continue to be successful, is to know that I can get better. I can always get better.
Yeah, absolutely. That humility is key, 100%.
Yeah.
So as you're going through your career, at some point you've learned obviously about firefighter values and culture. Was that before because of your father, or did you kind of work some of that out on the job? Where did you really learn about the values of firefighters and the culture of firefighters?
I would say, so growing up, I mean, I had hundreds of aunts and uncles because they were all firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were all actually my uncles, because growing up, I would call, like, my very first day on the job, the first guy I walked into was the fire chief at the time, Uncle George. And like, that was my perception of everybody. So I knew there was a great family sense. There were times in my career that I felt it, and there were times I didn't feel it. And so that's why I'm well aware that the culture changes based on where you go. The standard for me, I don't know. I mean, my dad is a great firefighter. My brother was a great firefighter and officer. I don't think I was nearly as good as either one of them at what they did. And so I think that if anything, and maybe, again, maybe that's just me thinking, and maybe other people have a different perception. I don't know. But I wanted to be really good at it. But know this about the fire department: as family oriented as it is, it can also be very cliquey. And when it's cliquey, sometimes it's the right group of people that are trying to form the right type of clique, and sometimes it's the wrong type of people that try to form the wrong type of clique. And so we have to be careful in our organizations of who we allow to have the power to shape the culture. And I saw a quote the other day, and I know I won't say this exactly word for word, but culture is basically how your heart and stomach feel on Sunday night, knowing that you have to go to work on Monday morning. And I thought, man, there were times, and throughout anybody's career, there's going to be times where, man, I'm excited to go to work today. And there's going to be times where you're not excited to go to work. And if the times when you're not excited to go to work outnumber dramatically the times you are, well, we need to change the culture. And culture gets changed more by the people than the top. And a lot of people don't realize this, because the top could put anything they want in writing. But the people that are working with you are the people that determine what's allowed and accepted and what's not. I worked with one organization one time, and they were complaining a lot about having some firefighters, new firefighters, they felt didn't know their job that well. And the administration was not, and I don't mean I worked with the department. I went in and spoke and did, was doing some consulting and some training with them. But they said that there were people that were getting on a job that really they didn't know the job. And some of the people up in administration weren't doing anything about it, but they were sending down notifications saying, make sure you're wearing this uniform. And so they're here getting aggravated, saying, they only care what uniform we're wearing, but they don't care about the fact that we have a firefighter or two that can't do the basics of the job. Okay, so we talked very, very personally about that issue, because here I am now. I'm there for several days to work with all the officers on each group. And in one of the groups in particular, by the third day, I got the hint, man, that this is something that's bothering everybody. We have a uniform policy, but not a standard of performance. And that's a problem. Now, let me go a little deeper into this, though. I start asking questions. And the questions is, one of these new firefighters that everybody's talking about, any of them happen to be on this group? And they said, yeah. Okay, so you have a new firefighter in this group whose standard of performance is low. What's something they're doing poorly? And I'm just going to say this because I don't want to insult any department out there. So I'll just say that this is what they said, that they can't put their gear on in under 2 minutes. Okay, I'm just randomly throwing it. That's not what they actually said. But it was something as simple as that, by the way, of donning your gear in 2 minutes or less. It was something as simple. It was actually more simple than that, to be honest with you. So I said this. I said, okay, well, they're on this group. If you're an officer on this group, and you all are the officers of this group, raise your hand if in the last week you personally worked with that firefighter on helping them accomplish that task. Not one hand went up. I said, what about in the last month? Now, I don't mean a drill was conducted by somebody. I mean, you personally worked with that firefighter to help them accomplish that specific task. Still not one hand went up. I said, okay, you're all pretty upset that you have a uniform policy, right? I said, raise your hand in this room if you are currently violating the uniform policy. 4 hands went up. I said, now, I'm not going to be a guy that ever wants to deal with a uniform issue. I think for me, let's get here. Let's do the job. Let's be great at what we do. I don't have time to worry about what uniform you're wearing. So just wear the right uniform so we don't have to deal with it. That was where I came from. But here's what I said to them. You're all complaining that they're not dealing with a firefighter who's not performing at a certain standard that no one here is working with to help them get to that standard. But at the same time, you're complaining about a uniform policy you're not allowed to violate, even though every one of you are violating it. Or half of you 4. So where's the disconnect here? We create our own problem. You're making them focus on the fact that you are not following a policy. You're making them focus on that. What at the same time, you're not focusing on the thing you do have control over. Number 1, wear the right uniform. Number 2, go train a firefighter. Sometimes this is what we do. We create our own problems by saying, I don't care, I'm done with that, I don't care anymore. And then we focus on whatever it is. We put our focus in the wrong area, quite honestly. Oh, this is going to be fun. Don't worry, he won't bite you. So this is live TV at its best.
Yeah, right.
The mosquito authority just came.
Oh man.
In my backyard. I didn't realize they were coming today.
Oh, no worries.
And my dog just attacked them.
Oh man.
So welcome to Facebook Live.
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. You take care of what you got to take
Bodie,
care of.
by the way, how you doing? Good. I'm glad you.
Oh man, I think we're losing a little internet here.
No, we'll get it back.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get it back. So this is Bodie. Say hi. He's named after Bodie from Point Break because I'm a big not that I'm a big surfer. I'm a big surfing fan, you know. So I'm going back inside right now, and let's get back to the heart of the matter. Apologize about that.
You got to get rid of those mosquitoes. I feel you. So don't worry about that.
So just before we started today, I had I had a little gnat that was attacking me. And years ago, I did this thing with a video that I put out there on YouTube where I was talking about a class I had coming up at FDIC. And while I was talking, I was getting attacked by gnats. So I'm doing this the whole time. And then I said, you know what? Let's talk about this because sometimes there's people at our jobs that are just like gnats. They're small. They're not doing anything to make the situation better, but all they're doing is trying to create distractions. Don't be a gnat, just don't be a gnat. Be someone that actually makes a difference in your organization, and everybody has the ability to do that.
Yeah. A flawless segue right there.
Yeah. Well, it's all we need is the mosquito people to come.
uh, so
They were supposed to be here yesterday, by the way. I guess they never arrived, so I didn't expect them to come back
hey,
there today.
we've got Comcast internet and TV in my area. You want to talk about not showing up? That's
Yeah.
that's something else. But they're gonna probably shut me down now. They're probably listening.
Yeah.
So,
Of course.
so one of the things that I really like to talk about, and the names, I'm probably not going to know them, I probably won't, right? And that's okay. But I really believe in giving people an opportunity to kind of highlight who influenced them earliest in their career. I feel like if anyone that's listened to the show, I've kind of touched on this a little bit, where you don't get an opportunity every time to tell those people,
Right.
what they did for you early on in your career and set you off on that right path. Does anybody come into mind for you early on?
Yeah, man. I mentioned my brother and my father. They'd be on top of the list, but also, and this man knows that he was a great influence in my life and my career. Mike Turpak. Mike Turpak's a retired deputy chief from Jersey City. Um, I used to say he was the most um, well-educated firefighter that I've ever met. Then I became an author. I travel around the country. I travel around Europe. Travel outside the country quite often, actually, but I travel mostly around the country. I do 50, 60, 70 seminars a year. I meet firefighters all over the country. I meet the most intelligent firefighters. And what I have to say about Chief Turpak now is that he is still the most well-educated firefighter that I personally know. So I was lucky because he was my instructor in the academy. He turned out to be a guy that I received a lot of promotional advice from and a lot of advice on how to be an officer from. He was a guy who, and still is a guy, that cares deeply about creating value for people through his books and through his training and his seminars. And I was lucky that he was in my county. Wasn't in my department, but he was in my county. There's times I'm working in the fire department and I'm listening to him on the radio at a fire, at a 2 alarm fire, thinking, hey, if it goes one more alarm, we may be going over there too. This is going to be great to work under him. But I could hear how poised he was, how in control he was, how, as a matter of fact, like this is what we need to accomplish. And when I talk about finding mentors in your life, they come from all over the place. And they don't have to always be in the industry you're in. I had mentors that were outside the industry, but I was lucky to have one that was so close that I can actually pick up the phone and call him and say, hey, Chief. And when I met him, he was a firefighter. Here I am in the academy. He's a firefighter. He was would always be the rank above me, just like my brother, by the way, always be the rank above me before I got there. And so I was just able to pick his brain and learn from him. And I'm spending a lot of time talking about him because he is that person for me. And there are others. Then I had the distant mentors, reading a book by John Norman, and he becomes a mentor through the book. Taking a class by Vincent Dunn, he becomes a mentor by me sitting in the audience and listening to him talk about building collapse. And they happen that way too. And now, I mean, the best part is I could say my mentors in the fire service are also my best friends in life. The PJ Norwoods out there and the Jim Duffys and the Anthony Castros and the Mike Gallianos and the Paul Combs and the Anthony Avillo and Jim Silvernail. And I've gotten to know so many more people. Kurt Isaacson and I have become friends. Tony Perez, who's a new chief just outside of Tampa right now. And yeah, these are people that I almost regret that I started naming them because I'm missing so many. Like Mike Dugan just came to mind. as I'm talking about that Frank Ritchie, and I can go on and on and on and on. I'm going to stop, but what I can tell you is there's many of them out there, and all we need to do is find them, and they're easy to connect with. You don't need to know them, man. Uh, link with them through social media, through Facebook, or through whatever avenues you can. Now the bug guy's spraying and my dog's barking.
That's okay.
It's going to come a podcast for the ages.
Hey, it's okay. Hey, I had one with my wife already, so you want to talk about funny, interesting conversations and stuff and segues. But yeah, I'm definitely starting to learn and echo what you're talking about for sure. And there's a balance between that. Like when you go to FDIC, like I've made a point now where if I see somebody that I recognize that's influenced me, I try to go up and say hi, right? And that the people that you were a keynote FDIC speaker, and we're having a conversation. That should show any firefighter that anyone you look up to, you can have a conversation.
You can with anybody.
Yeah.
You know, and you mentioned FDIC, so I'm so glad you did, because now I got to also mention Bobby Halton.
Yes.
Bobby Halton was a tremendous influence.
Absolutely.
And who unfortunately passed away recently, but he's the reason why I had the opportunity to keynote at FDIC. If it wasn't for him, he's the one that called me up. And matter of fact, a very interesting thing about it, by the way, he calls me up and tells me, this is pre-COVID, that I'm going to be keynoting an FDIC. And I'm like, wow. Like at a loss for words, excited, enthusiastic, nervous. I don't get nervous speaking at all, because when I'm speaking, I'm not trying to do anything for me. I'm trying to pass information to the people that are there. So I never get nervous speaking, but all of a sudden I got nervous thinking about speaking at FDIC. And then COVID happened and everything got shut down and I missed the opportunity. But then he calls me up and he says to me, the summer after COVID, everything started up. And he said, I want to schedule the date, and I want you to come in and I want you to be the keynote. I said, oh, thank you. I mean, yeah, but then I look at the date and I realize I can't, because on that particular date, my boys were playing in the All-American games for baseball. And I thought, like, I'm not going to miss that. They're still young. I got plenty of baseball ahead of me. They got plenty of meaning as a dad and as a coach. But I don't want to miss this opportunity. So I call him back. I say, hey, I was just looking at the calendar. I can't do that weekend. And he says, why? And I said, I'm just going to be honest with him, right? How can I not be honest? I said, my boys are playing in the All-American games, and I don't want to miss that. And he says, okay. And, oh, no problem. I got someone else in mind. I'll just call them up, enjoy the games. I don't blame you for not wanting to miss that. I said, okay. So I hang up the phone again, and then I'm thinking about it. And I go, I just blew it. Now, first of all, this is what I want you to know. I was okay with blowing it, because family first.
Yeah.
But I also thought, all right, I'll never keynote at FDIC now. So let me just pick up the phone one more time. And I call him again. I said, hey, Chief. I said, I'm just curious. Did I lose the opportunity to keynote? And he goes, oh, no. I'll have you come in next year. Keynote next year. He goes, and what I want you to do is I want you to bring your family. I want you to have your boys sit in the front row so they could see that you passed that opportunity up, to go watch them play baseball, so they know that they rate above this career, because that's important for them to know. That meant everything to me, that he did that.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, I had a lot of friends call me and tell me, we heard what happened. We heard that you passed up the keynote for your son's baseball, and thank you for being that authentic, because that's the stuff I talk about. First, family first.
Yeah.
And But that fire service family is obviously an important family, but you got to take care of the one at home.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean it comes with issues. We know that, like being a dad, being a parent, uh, is as challenging many times and more challenging than being a leader in the fire service. So there has to be a balance of let me figure out what I need to do. Uh, I have a friend that was very reluctant to take the job of a chief officer on his department, just called me just a few weeks ago. And I met him. I went out and I did training for their organization. He asked me if I could meet him for lunch one day. We went out, we had lunch together, and he just talked about with some challenges. He wanted to get some advice or insight on some challenges he was going through, and so we talked about that a little bit. And then he just calls me recently, and everything's going good, but now he has the opportunity to now be the chief of that organization. He says, I just don't know if I want to take this. I said, well, first of all, do you want to be a chief? He says, yes. Second, would you like to take the politics out of it, take the personal stuff out of it, of these challenges that we talked about previously? Would you like to be the chief of that organization? He says, yes. I said, okay, so to me right now, your answer is yes. Now, what is the main challenge? And one of his main challenges was he's like, look, I'm so transparent. I have, like everybody knows in my position now, if you're having a problem, call me. So I get calls sometimes, I'm off duty all the time, actually. He goes in, I'm kind of nervous. Like, what happens if I'm away with my family and we're at the beach or wherever we are for the day, and all of a sudden I get a call about a union issue. I said, well, you pick up the phone and you say, hey, does this have to be solved right now? All right, I'll call you back. I'm with my family now. It's that simple. Because you have to know that there are boundaries to work. If we brought our work into our home life all the time, then we're not going to have a home life. And I'm not saying that whatever they're dealing with isn't important. Yeah, I picked up the phone many times. Matter of fact, even at work, there was times I was sitting down with the mayor and my phone rang and it's my wife. And there's no way I'm not going to pick up the phone. So I pick up the phone, I say, hey, everything okay? And when I answer with, is everything okay? She usually knows I'm busy. That's why I'm asking that question. So she'll say, yeah, you're busy. I can call you back. I said, yeah, I'll call you when I'm done with the meeting. And I hang up. But if I don't pick up that phone and she calls a second time, now I'm wondering, is everything really okay? And then there's a third call. So first family first. And if you treat your first family the right way, and I'm not saying it, listen, again, there's people that have issues and challenges, and there's times things don't work out. I get that. So I'm not judging anybody. So don't take the wrong message. But if you can get things right there, then you understand what it means to actually build a family. When your child is struggling with something and you could sit down with them and talk to them and help them through that. It's similar to when an officer is dealing with a firefighter who's going through a challenge, and you could sit down and talk to them and help them through it. It's the same principle. So hopefully somebody that's listening finds that information we just talked about helpful.
Yeah.
As they tour my house, or at least the ceilings in my house.
The ceiling. Beautiful ceilings. That crown molding is.
Yeah.
Hey, it's still. I mean, I'm in my kid's playroom, so and I don't think I'll ever change it. It cracks me up that.
No, don't. Did you hear what I did on a podcast one time?
No.
I was just in my office a moment ago. I'm trying to walk to avoid this guy that's spraying this stuff in my backyard with this thing on his back that's louder than a jet airplane. So, where I work in my office is also my kid's playroom. And not anymore because they're older. They don't go in there much anymore. But I have a bunch of books, and the kids' books, children's books, and I have their Legos, their Matchbox cars, all that stuff. And there were times where I'm working on something, and it still happens time to time, where you're working on something and your children distract you. And it's like, not now. I'm in the middle of doing something. That attitude comes out. I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? If what I'm working on doesn't need to be done right now, and because I kind of don't have uh, any deadlines or time frames other than the ones I set for myself at this point, a lot of stuff isn't urgent. I can put it down and just deal with that moment with my children and have, Dad, you want to play? Yeah, I do. When they're 6, when they're 7, 8, if anybody here has 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds that want to play, put away your phone, turn off your computer, and go play with them. You're not getting that time back. That's why one of the main reasons why I still coach baseball with my kids. My youngest is 12 and I coach his baseball team, his travel team. We got practice tonight. We got practice tomorrow. We got a tournament this weekend. We got practice Monday. We got practice Thursday. And then we go to Cooperstown for a full week. I'm not. And here's the other thing. I took the whole month off just to be able to do this stuff because my other son plays and he'll be with us for everything. He's playing with another team, but he'll be at the same tournament on the same complex, playing the same days. So, you know what? Enjoy this time. When it's gone, it's gone. And everybody I know that has children that are growing up will always give you that advice, saying, like, don't waste it. Don't waste it. And I heard this advice recently. If when you have that moment where your children are getting the better of you, and you're getting frustrated with them, imagine that you're 75 years old and you have a time machine that can bring you back in time, but only to this moment for 5 minutes, and then you go back. How would you react to your kids then? And sometimes when you put things in perspective like that, all right, it's not that bad. They're having a moment. Let me teach them. Let me use it as a teaching moment, you know? So if you can get good at doing those types of things, it's going to help make you a better officer because you won't get as frustrated. One of the things I teach in my seminars is this: you need to get really good at understanding that no matter how much time, training, tools, equipment, guidance, support, and environment, a good of an environment that you set for people, no matter how much you give them, people, not everybody, but some people are still going to disappoint you. They're still going to push your buttons. And you have to understand that, because if you understand that, it won't be as frustrating when it does happen. It'll be expected. And some people misinterpret that message and say, wait, so then I'm really not leading if I'm expecting them to disappoint me. No, what it means is human nature is what you're excited about, what you're enthusiastic about, may not be resonating with them right now, and that could be frustrating. How could you not like working in this environment that I'm creating for you? Well, maybe they just wouldn't like any environment at this point in their life. They're going through other challenges, and you're getting frustrated with the fact that they're giving you a subpar performance. And maybe it's not subpar. Maybe you're disappointed that they're just doing the minimum. Minimum standards is a whole nother question, by the way, that we should talk about.
Yeah.
But they're just doing the minimum. Well, maybe you ought to pull them aside and sit down and talk with them instead of just getting mad at the fact that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Maybe there's more to it. There's something happening in their personal life. We need to be human beings first. And there's still a standard they need to reach, and they need to understand that. But at the same time, let's talk about why they're not. But in the conversation about minimum standards, there's two different schools of thought. And one of them is that minimum standards are one step above inadequate, which I agreed with for most of my life, that when I heard that statement. But then I thought, well, it really depends on the standard. Because if you set a high enough standard, minimum standards create rock stars. If your standard is high enough in a program, well, then the minimum standard's pretty darn good. So consider the standard you set before you make that determination. If you set a very high standard, You may lose your low performers. Well, listen to this. If you set a very low standard, you may lose your high performers. So which would you rather focus on? Set a higher standard, you know? So and I hope people are finding some of this stuff we're talking about helpful.
Yeah, I think that that's a huge conversation around most fire departments now is standards and that editorial, or I guess an article or whatever Corley just wrote, which was featuring what exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It is relative. Was totally in agreement, right? That minimum standards was, just the bare minimum, and if you just got above that, well, you just scraped the bottom of the barrel, basically. But yeah, if we can create a standard that's higher than that, and then that's our minimum standard, yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. If you're meeting that and people continue to meet that, that's a positive thing. It's all relative.
For sure.
Yeah,
It is. It's all relative. It's all relative. And so you have to be really, but again, I mentioned this earlier. Your administration can set a standard for your organization, but that doesn't mean that your officers are adhering to it, buying into it, or enforcing it. So you have power to create that standard. You have power to create the culture you work in. And you don't have to be an officer to have this power. But if you are an officer, you do have a lot of power to create that standard. And you have to really make it known what's acceptable and what's not. And also live it. Don't just talk it, live it.
Yeah, I think you said it. What if you can't lead yourself, right? Then how can you lead anyone else? And in the same way, I think as pivotal as a company officer can be with setting standards and maintaining them. If you, as a firefighter, set your own and you meet them, and you don't boast about it, and you're not flashy about it, and you don't tell everyone about it, you just do it. I think that is a way that you, as a firefighter, can influence that minimum standard to be just a little bit higher. You pick those moments, and that's where I wanted to talk about controlling what you can control. And if you could share some insight about that particular topic.
Control the controllables. Yeah, control the controllables. This is something that I for years have spoke to my, more so my I coach baseball down in Toms River, New Jersey, youth baseball, little league, and I have I mentioned a travel team. One of the things I talk to these kids about a lot is controlling the controllables. Control what you can control. As an example, if you're the pitcher on the mound and you are pitching a no-hitter and all of a sudden a kid gets one and it gets through a gap, nobody can make a play on that. You couldn't control it and the pitch is already done. So you know what? Shake it off. That part's over with. Now control what you can do from this point forward. And the important thing about controlling the controllables is a lot of times in life what people stress out about are things they actually don't have the power or the ability to control or change. So why are we stressing out about it? Control the controllables and don't worry about the rest. Baseball for me provides the better analogies than anything else when I try to explain this principle. If you are if you're playing the shortstop position and that ball gets hit to you and you bobble it and it bounces off your glove and then you run, take 3 extra steps, get it, throw it, and the kid already reached base, so you didn't need to throw it, but you made a bad throw because you rushed it, so now he takes second base. You missed the opportunity to control that controllable. The first controllable is field the ball the right way, but we made that mistake. Don't make that mistake or follow that mistake up with a second mistake of now throwing the ball to first base, making a bad throw, even though he was already safe, and now giving up second. All right, I made that mistake, and it's an error. It happens. Errors wouldn't be statistics if they didn't happen. They happen. It's an error. Shake it off. Shake it off. What can I do now? And what I could do is I can control holding the runner at first by not throwing the ball around the field. Now I just get the ball back to the pitcher, next pitch. That moment's over. And here's the thing about tactics and strategies. Strategies are important, but uh, understand this, that the end of a failed strategy is the beginning of your new strategy. So if what we were doing did not work, if we make a mistake on the fire ground, if we make a mistake in life, if we make a mistake on a ball field, it's over with. This is my new starting point. Bases loaded, one out. This is my new starting point. I didn't want the bases loaded with one out, but this is where we're at. So what do I have to do at this point? Well, let's prevent the run. Plays to home now. So we have to adapt as we go based on the situation we find ourselves in. It happens in life, it happens in sports, and it happens on the fire ground.
Love the parallel. I love it. Yeah. You got to have the memory of a goldfish in a way with some things, right? Like, take
For
it in.
sure, for sure.
And
And that's a hard one for me. I'm an overthinker.
yeah.
So I will beat myself up over mistakes I made, things that I said that I shouldn't have said, things I didn't say that I should have, things I did that I should not have done, or things that I didn't do that I should have. I will beat myself up relentlessly over it. I'll be my own, and I've learned to control that. And when I talk to people who are overthinkers, I tell them you have to learn to change the channel. Change the channel. You sit here and you dwell on it all the time. You wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you dwell on it all the time. You better find something to do that can take your mind off of that you can focus on something else. Well, I don't care if it's a chore around the house and that has nothing to do with what you're doing. I have a number of things that have to get done around the house. And I don't mean the honey-do list. What I mean is things that I need to do that um, when I fall into that trap of overthinking, I'm like, well, here's an example. Here's an example. I have about 400 challenge coins. Okay. And right now they're all sitting in a drawer, just this giant drawer. And I'm like, I can't stand it. I want them displayed. I have nothing to display it with. And I really don't have the wall space where I would want to display it for 400 coins. So I bought some books, and the books that hold challenge coins. It's really cool. And each one holds, I think, 12 each page. You can slip them in there. So every now and then, if I find myself in that situation where, all right, Frank, you don't have much to do right now, and now you're starting to think about, you know what, I'm gonna pull out another 40 or 50 challenge coins, and I'm gonna start putting them in that book. Do you know what I mean? Just to distract my mind from. But what's cool about that is now I'm re-looking at every one of these challenge coins. Every one of them were given to me primarily from speaking throughout the years, and so every time I look at one, it brings me back to that moment when I was there, who I met, who gave me the coin, what we talked about, maybe some of the sights that I saw when I was out there, and it redirects your brain. The challenge with overthinking is you're stuck in a problem that's actually not a problem because you make it a problem in your head. When in reality, control the controllables. If I did it already, I did it. If I didn't do it already, I didn't do it. That moment's over. What can I do right now? And this is something I just talked to somebody about. And I'm gonna it's a chapter in a new book I'm working on, and I actually might make it a book in and of itself. But it's win, win. But what win stands for is what's important now. If you really want to win at what you're doing, what do I need to do right now to actually help me achieve my goal? What's important now is a great tool to implement for people that are either overthinkers or trying to accomplish a goal and don't know how to get there. You have to focus on a moment. What can I do right now to help me accomplish my goals? As a team, what can we do right now to help us accomplish our goals? You want to be great at firefighting? Is that your goal? I hope it is if you're in the industry, right? If you're in the industry, I hope you want to be great at what you do. Well, what can we do right now to be better? And then go out and do those things. And obviously that's training, preparation, and it's getting to know people around you.
Yeah. Yeah, so much from just controlling the controllables.
Yeah.
It's such great advice, and it's something to try to live by. I thank you for sharing all that.
I appreciate having a conversation.
So, with that, I'm in the background of all of this, right? I'm feeling being positive is a major factor in a lot of these self motivation, leadership, Can you touch on that a little bit too? Speak on being positive, keeping yourself in a positive mindset.
Life's hard, man. Life's hard. Life will beat you down. Life, you hear that the world ain't all sunshine and rainbows speech by Rocky. Man, I get it. I get it. There's nothing that I or no experience that I've had where I've achieved any level of success that that I would perceive or someone else. Nothing came easy. Everything was filled with self-doubt. Everything was filled with critics. I still have critics. Everybody does. I have a social media page right now. Step Up and Lead has, I think, 133,000 fans of that page. And most of it is incredibly positive feedback. But then you get people that just throw stuff out there that, you know, it reminds me of life. It's like, hey, this is a great conversation we're all having right now. And look, we got 63 comments. What a great conversation. And it's growing. And all of a sudden, bang, somebody throws something in there. And the people that are negative out there that disagree with you in today's world, it's not always, hey, I understand what you're saying, but I disagree. In today's world, it's, oh, yeah, I think you're an a-hole for saying that. Like, that's how people start. A lot of people on social media is they go right for, hey, I want to insult you, as if you're going to insult somebody to a point where they say, you know what? Yeah, I want to have a conversation with you. And I agree. I am an idiot. You're never going to insult anybody to the point where they agree with you. But I see people doing this all the time. But for me, that's just kind of like a metaphor for life. Just when everything seems going good, hey, man, I'm having a good run. If you're in business and you're making a lot of sales, man, this is a good run. Now all of a sudden the economy changes. And boom, uh-oh, the well ran dry. That's life. And you just have to be prepared for that. Stay as positive as you can. I'm not always the most positive. My wife will tell you, I'm not always the most positive person, because she gets to hear conversations with me that don't often come out on stage. But if people have attended my classes, anybody that's listened to this, that's attended my seminars, knows I'm extremely transparent. I don't stand up. First thing I tell people is I'm not a leadership expert. So if you came here to listen to a leadership expert, you're in the wrong room. I'm a leadership specialist and a leadership student. I specialize in learning about this. Leadership and team building are a passion of mine. I love building teams and building successful teams. And I've never once ever had a successful team that didn't have a level or a group of challenges that were trying to prevent us from being successful. And you'd be surprised on every successful team how there is at least one person, whether it's jealousy, envy, greed, that doesn't want the team to succeed because you're the one leading it and not them. And maybe they think they can do it better. Maybe they just don't want you to have the accolades, whatever it may be. And they're going to be working behind the scenes to try to make sure the team doesn't succeed by having conversations with people behind your back and by going and doing things that will make it more difficult for you to achieve the goal. And that's what I mean when I say you have to get good at knowing people are going to disappoint you. But once you know those people are who they really are, don't forget it. Just know that they are those people. And I've kept certain people around on certain teams in and out of the fire service that I know aren't people that I could truly trust or rely on. But sometimes circumstances were of that the best thing for the team was to kind of keep those people around for one reason or another. It's hard to explain that without going into detail, but that's a chapter in a book too.
I get it. I'm my area in terms of like recruitment and like going from one department to another here in Illinois, like it's not a thing. You're hired, and unless it's within the first 5 years or so, like that's it. Like, and that person's going to be on that department for 30 years, 25 years, whatever it is, right? So people really don't leave 15 years into a job unless they're leaving for promotion or something like that, right? Now their department's hiring battalion chiefs and you've got the credentials, so you would leave to go somewhere else for that opportunity. But for the most part, like at a blue shirt level or even a company officer, a lieutenant level, people don't really leave in the middle of those, in the middle of careers. So building a team has and I'm sure my area is not exclusive to that, but building a team has its challenges because your cards are your cards. Really, the only way to change is to hire different people as you replace them through attrition, or
Right.
try to coach them in the moment. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, on that topic, I spoke with one organization one time that was not participating the way most organizations do. Because there's a lot of times where we'll take a break. I'll come back and I'll say, okay, and I prep them for this before, but I say, okay, talk to me about what your takeaways are from this class so far. And somebody will say something, control the controllables, or unused skills fade quickly, or one of the things that we talk about, like firefighting is built on a foundation of perishable skills. If you don't use the skill, you lose it. So unused skills will fade quickly. And so that'll be something that somebody throws out. I'm speaking at this one department one time. Nobody's giving me feedback. And it's full. The room is full. Nobody's giving me feedback. Day two, nobody's giving me feedback. And I say, look, I've been doing this for years. I told them. I said, I never, ever asked that question without receiving anything back. I said, am I not connecting with you? Are you not understanding what I'm trying to say? Because I want to understand you better. If I have to adapt to try to get this message across, I can do that. But I just want to know why I'm not getting any interaction. Nobody said anything. All right, so I just went on with the class. We take the next break. A guy pulls me aside. He goes, do you really want to know why nobody's saying anything? I said, yeah. He said, fear of retaliation. I said, from who? And he nodded over to the administration that was in the room. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, they don't discipline to correct like you were talking about in the class. They discipline to punish. And so everybody just knows, keep your mouth shut. It's been this way for years in classes. Man, I had to work hard to break through to these guys. I had to work really hard. Next time I came in, I asked that administration to give me two classes, one with just the firefighters and officers without them in the room, and one with just the administration. So we can have different types of conversations. And that's what we did.
yeah, that's. I would imagine a lot of people probably feel that way, and deal with that some of that in their own organizations, right? That's
In
probably more
one way,
common.
shape, or
Yeah,
form. Yeah, in one way, shape, or form.
yeah,
It could just be one person.
yeah.
I mean, if you work with five people and one of them is just one person you just don't really value or trust, that doesn't think that they're really on the same team as you, that makes a difficult work environment. But when that person is your boss, it makes a relentlessly difficult working environment.
Yeah.
And so we have to work through those things. And when what I tell people, if you're in that situation, is just know this: they won't be your boss forever, and there's options. And the option isn't always leave. If you're not happy, leave. If that's your answer, man, you'll have to tough it out through some difficult administrations now and then. An opportunity will come, maybe for you to get promoted, maybe for you now to reshape the culture your way. Maybe they retire, the administration changes. Maybe you get an offer in another organization to come in, like a buddy of mine, was not getting along with his chief at all. They had a very difficult working environment. And today he is a chief of another organization, and is able to create the culture that he wants to create the way that he felt it should be created without them butting heads. And that doesn't mean either one of them are bad people, but they didn't work well together.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen too. Happens in relationships all the time. Two good people could not be good together. And maybe they just need to find different avenues to run in, different circles to run in, different organizations to work for. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't think firefighters are the type of people that, like you mentioned earlier, hey, we don't just jump from organization to organization to organization. If you jump from this is like this is like the kid on a travel baseball team that goes from team to team to team to team to team. What that usually comes down to is either the parents are an issue, or maybe the kid is an issue, rarely does it come down to nobody's giving. If they're on their fifth or sixth team, five or six teams can't be wrong. And I've explained this to someone recently that said that they wanted to leave their third job and go to a fourth one. And I said to the person, I said, well, understand this. If you're now going to leave this job and go to a fourth one without spending a full year at any one of them, you're taking the problem with you. And he said to me, what do you mean by that? I said, because you can't run from you. And that was a hard conversation to have. But sometimes you have to be willing to have hard conversations. And I said, now, I'm not saying you are a problem, but you are your own worst enemy in this. Because I knew this. I mean, we had a lot of conversations about this situation that this individual was going through. You're creating a lot of these problems. You're expecting something that doesn't exist. Is, like I mentioned to my kids earlier, and I said on this conversation earlier, nobody's handing you anything. Nobody's going to walk in and say, we're glad you finally came. We're going to roll out the red carpet. And we were a good organization before. We're going to be a great one. We're going to be even better for you. You're not going to work nearly as hard as we had to work to become an officer or to make a difference in this organization because we've been waiting for you forever. Thank you for finding. No, it's not how it works. It's going to be quite different. It's going to be, you need to earn your way here. You need to earn respect. You need to earn your stripes. You need to earn your position in our circle because that's human nature. And maybe it's not like we're keeping, what I disagree with completely is, hey, go over there, sit down, shut up, don't say anything until I talk to you. I disagree with that method completely. No, come on in. You're part of our family now. Welcome to the family. That's the way I would rather create it. And let's talk about that standard and why it's important. And let's talk about standard in the fire service. Let's put this right out there. Let's put this right out there. Here's the standard. Let's just say you're listening, you're a firefighter and you're listening to this, and you have a wife and a child at home. And let's say you work 30 minutes away from where your house is. Some people work 2 hours away from where they live. Some people work 2 minutes away. So let's just say 30 minutes away and you have a wife and a young child at home. You're on duty. And you come to find out that your house is on fire. You don't know if your wife got out or not. You just know you were just given permission to leave work to go home. And on that 30-minute drive, you are hoping and praying that they got out okay. And what would get them out okay? Well, let's talk about the first arriving engine company or ladder company or rescue company. Or let's talk about all three. Let's talk about the deputy. That's the incident commander or the battalion chief. You want the absolute best showing up. Now, you are going to be first due at someone else's tragedy. And they deserve the same exact thing that your family has or that you want for your family, the best. That's the standard. And if people can't buy into that, there's plenty of other jobs. I don't have to stay. There's plenty of other jobs. But that's what we need to get to. What standard are you setting? What conversations are you having about this? And if somebody's going to brush that off and say, oh, yeah, here we go, like here comes the gung-ho war speech. No, this is reality, man. You can lose your life in this job, right? And by the way, we inherit risk. We inherit risk on fireground. We don't want to be naive enough or unprepared enough to create more risk because we didn't set that standard we've been talking about for the past couple minutes. These are the conversations we have to have with our members in the fire service. It's not a country club. It's not a secondary job to come to get rest from your other job. It's a place that you come to be the best you can, to perform a very difficult job under very difficult circumstances, to save life and property and protect the weak. And when I say protect the weak, they're not weak people, but if they can't get out of that house, they're having a moment where they're not strong enough to they don't have the ability to get themselves out, and you need to be strong enough to be the one to figure out how to get them.
Yeah. Yeah, you were talking about risk and I inheriting it, right? I think that conversation's much louder now, right? Where
It is.
we talk
It's a
about,
very,
right? Like
yeah,
people would say, we're here to mitigate risk or something of that. Where I would echo what you say. We're here to assume it. We're here to inherit it because
it's there.
it's
It's
already
there.
there. You
It's there.
you
Yeah,
can't
man.
mitigate something
And
that's already there. Well, you know what
yeah,
I mean. Like,
yeah, no, I know what you mean. Listen, I think danger diminishes with competence. Okay. So if you're very competent at what you do, is the danger still there? Yes, but you're more prepared to deal with it. So you're not going to have compounded danger. Oh no, now I made this mistake. Uh-oh, now we did this. And that happens in this world. And it happens to the best of them. The best deputy chiefs or incident commanders that I know in the country have all lost buildings. All of them. It's just like the best coaches in the world have all lost games. All of them. It happens. And so you need to learn from it and say, okay, what went wrong here? And don't just have the incident and not learn from it. Study it. Focus on, what do we need to do the next time? That's why we have a post-incident analysis, or an after-action review, which you could do whether you're a firefighter or not. You have a bad incident at work. What went wrong here? What can we do about this to prevent it from happening again? These are conversations that need to happen. Conversations are everything, man. If people tell me, you know what, I have a, I have a tough situation at work. I'm newly promoted officer. I'm trying to make change. I'm encountering resistance. Okay. Are you just telling me about this, or are you talking to the people you need to talk to about this? Because you need to sit down with them and have the conversation we just had about your wife and your kid. That's a conversation you need to have with them. The people out there deserve the best, and we need to be the ones that have to go out there and provide it. Because there is in some organizations, not just in the fire service, all over, there's a coma of complacency where it's especially with social media, right? I mean, how many hours of a week, for some people a day, can you lose because you're just scrolling on your phone? The other day, I sat down to watch a movie. I wish I could even remember the name of the movie. All I know is I sat down to watch the movie with my son. It was the new Avatar movie. He's like, Dad, you want to watch it? I'm like, yeah, I'll watch it. I sat down to watch it, and I had made the incredible mistake of having my phone in my hand. So as we're watching the beginning of the movie, I'm kind of scrolling through social media. I'm checking my email. I'm looking through a text or two. Next thing I know, I'm 30 minutes into the movie, and I have no idea what's even happening. Who's who? What's going on? And then I realized, like, he probably thinks I'm not even spending time with him. Because if we're both watching a movie, we're actually going to be commenting about that. Oh, wow, did you see that? That was pretty cool. You know, things like that. But I'm not even paying attention. So I'm with him, but I'm not even with him.
yeah,
And I honestly had to consciously just take my phone, turn it off, put it down. And we started the movie so late and it's so long, we never made it past the first hour anyway. We paused it. So we're
yeah,
going to pick it up. But when he's not here, I'm going to watch the first 40 minutes so I know what I missed.
yeah. I mean, I'll be transparent about it. My wife and I, my sons are going to be 1 and 3 at the end of the year, right? So
Yeah.
we're in the heat of it right now, right? Where it's constant. They need something constant. There's no independence. You know what I mean? And so
Yep.
by the time the day's done, it's like, oh, like we're just gonna relax, right? And we've caught ourselves, being on our phones more or something like that, and we've noticed that that's a thing after they go to bed. We're trying to be better about it. So I went
Yeah.
on Amazon, and she's into all the murder mystery stuff. So Amazon sells these murder mystery, like, solve the murder boxes, and it was like $30, and we just dropped it, and together her and I solved a problem for 2 hours that wasn't kid related, and it was one of the best nights we've probably had in months because it just gave us something, not scrolling, engaging with each other, talking. And I would almost echo that in the same way in the fire station. If you're not connecting with people, having a thing that's not in the chair, or it's not fire service, but you're on shift and you're together and you're doing
Oh,
stuff,
this is why
right?
I've never had a problem with if there's a pool table or a ping pong table
Yeah.
or a deck of cards. I've never had a problem with this stuff because you need to bond with your members. If you're training, if you're doing your job, you're answering the call, doing your reports, taking care of your station, following the rules, the regulations of the organization, then guess what? Have fun. Go have fun. So when they would do things, I remember one time, they had all the big cribbing blocks down on the apparatus floor that just got delivered. And I hear some stuff happening down there. I hear a generator going, and I hear some laughing, and I go downstairs. They got the Jaws of Life, the Hearst tool, and they're playing Jenga with the cribbing.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought, well, you know what? They're operating the tool, uh, and they're working on finessing that tool a little bit. They already did their job. They already trained. You have to know this is later in the evening. They've already. I mean, our guys were training for 3 hours a day, so it's not like I'm like, what are you doing? I went down there and I'm like, all right, listen, they're enjoying themselves. Have fun.
Yeah.
Have fun. Get to know your equipment a little better in the process.
Yeah. I mean, we collaborate all day, right, on calls. We're working together. We're even cooking lunch, but that's not the same as, like you're saying, having fun, just doing
Right.
something just together. I mean, that's brotherhood. Like no different than playing with your siblings or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes some people blow stuff up that they probably shouldn't, or maybe take it a little too far. But
Well,
still,
I wouldn't say light a roll of toilet paper and throw it in the bathroom when
yeah,
somebody's in there. That I wouldn't say do. And luckily no one ever did do on my job that I'm aware of. But I've heard stupid stuff like that.
sure.
Be smart.
One of the best shifts I ever had. My captain for us, captain would be battalion chief. He was retiring after 30-something years, and it was his last night. And he could prank a little, but not. Pranking in the fire station wasn't as prevalent. For my generation, I think. And we took some IV tubing and we ran it up over the drop ceiling and we poked it through and we had it drip on his bed. Well, he was on the phone and we're listening in the office and we think, well, why isn't he wet? Like maybe the thing's broken. So we squeeze the IV bag. Still nothing. We're like, okay, the whole bag's gone. 1,000 liter or 1 liter or whatever. And nothing. We're like, all right, well, I guess it didn't work. Maybe it's in the ceiling tile. We'll figure it out in the morning. And then all of a sudden we hear, oh, what the, through the other side. And totally soaked his whole bed. He comes over and our bunk room is communal. We don't have walls or anything like that. It's all beds. And he slams the door open, pulls out the hose from washing rigs on the bay floor, and he's going to soak us all. And we go running into the corner and just I wish I had more nights like that before he retired. Like it was so much fun just interacting like that.
I could neither confirm nor deny whether we ever had moments like that in my fire station.
Hey, my dad used to tell me stories.
Insanity.
Yep. They had Murphy beds back in the day, and maybe some people got folded up in them. So
Yeah. Short cheating, never heard of it.
Oh, I didn't know about that. My in-laws are from the hospitality industry, and that was a thing, I guess, in the family, short sheeting people's beds.
Yeah.
So it's funny.
That was a rite of passage for new firefighters in our organization.
We had tinfoil.
Years ago.
That was well, not my current department, but where I started. When I started volunteer, and then that became part-time, that became contract, and then whatever. So we were kind of full-time, but not really. And that was a rite of passage, was tinfoil on the bed. We'd undo somebody's and just lay tinfoil over the whole thing. It was a lot of fun. So
Awesome.
I want to talk. So I only have my closing questions, really, but
Okay.
I do want to
let's do
still.
it.
I want one little bit because we did talk about it on the phone when we were planning this, and it was the contractors and the pool. And you had a story with that you told me to bring up.
The long and short of it, I opened up my pool this year and I needed a new liner. And after getting pricing out the liner, you found out there was a lot more that had to do with it. And I needed a new light and I needed the coping around it to be painted. And then I found out that it wasn't just the leak, although I had some rips in the liner, The main leak was coming from the stairs, so I needed new stairs. And next thing I know, I'm 12,000 into this thing of and it's getting worse and worse and worse. What I don't know is that I need to call a mason. I didn't know this when I got the quote for everything getting done, that I needed to call my own mason after putting the new stairs in. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think they were transparent about that. I thought this is the price and everything's going to be covered. And so when I called them, they're like, "Oh, no, it's in the contract." And we did explain it. I'm like, "Well, you didn't explain it because I didn't remember that, but maybe it's in the contract." Okay, so they recommend a mason. I call the guy, he comes, he looks at this little area, this little area. I don't want to go out and show it to you now, but um, he says $10,000. Like $10,000. Like I could pour concrete myself, don't get me wrong, but it has to be done correctly. I just put this liner in and I need to put the um the rails in. So I need to make sure I put the posts in the right areas. But $10,000. You gotta be kidding me. So I leave them a message and I'm like, you know, like it's crazy. And they're like, well, that's who we use. That's who we recommend. I'm like, all right. So I call somebody that I know. They come and they give me a quote and they say I could do it for 5,000. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So we're gonna go and we're gonna do it. But then I stop by another pool store and it's a little closer to my house. And I said, I was picking up chemicals. I said, by the way, do you have anybody that does mason work? Because my buddy is all the way up north. And honestly, I think this is more of a bother for him to come down. It's an hour and a half than somebody that might be right here. So I go to the other pool store and they're real friendly, super nice. And a woman says, yeah, call this guy. Um, he's the one we recommend for everybody. Really good, really nice guy. I said, I'll call him. So he comes and he looks at the job and he says, well, the problem is I can do this small part, but you're going to have to do this side too, because you see how this is sinking. For me to line them up together, because this stairs are a little higher than the other ones, the only right way to do it is that way, to do that. And I'm thinking, oh, right, now this guy's going to charge me 15,000. So I said, well, how much? He goes, well, it's going to be expensive. I said, well, how much to do it all? He says, 3,200. I'm like, 3,200? When can you start? Are you kidding me? But here's the thing about it. He says you need to buy these cups that the railings sit into. You need to buy these. I don't pick them up, but you can go right to the pool store and you can pick them up. Well, the first guy told me, yeah, I'll bring the cups. Don't worry, they're about 120 a piece. So he added that onto the $10,000. Well, I went and I picked up all four for 120. So who do you think is my new pool company?
I mean, option three on that one. That's yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the point is, the one that I just randomly stopped by to pick up some chemicals for the pool ends up redirecting me to a guy that gives one third the price to do twice as much work, who also, um, leads me to get a product myself that realizes it's one quarter the price of what he actually told me it was going to be. And then you just realize now listen, in all fairness, that first contractor is probably incredibly busy, and I get it. But I'd rather you say, you know what, I'm too busy to take on a job this small for what I got going on right now. You're going to try to steal, like $7,000 out of my bank account to do a job that is not, anybody knows it's not a $10,000 job. But, when I talk about leadership, and first of all, that's more about customer service than anything else. But customer service is about leadership too. Be honest with me. You have a right to charge anything you want, but you also lose a loyal customer. I've been a customer of that other pool company for 12 years. And right there, you lose me. One recommendation. Because now I'm thinking I probably spent way more than I should have for the whole pool.
Yeah.
because I was just trusting them instead of going and getting second opinions. Now, granted, I got the more expensive liner and I got the padding that goes under the liner. So when people are saying a liner's going to cost you 2 or 3 thousand, and I'm telling you, well, my cost, 6,000. That's because I had the coping painted, I got a new light in, I got, or not wired. I got a new light wired. I had a bunch of other stuff done. So I understand that price is probably legit. It was more so the guy they're referring me to. That's just not giving me a price that's realistic. But sometimes you just have to tell people and be honest with them. And when you could provide great service and when you can't provide great service. And if you can't, this is why I'm too busy. Happens to me sometimes with speaking. When people sometimes will reach out to me, I'm finally going to the Orlando Fire Conference in February and January this next year to give a talk. I'm thrilled about it. We tried making this happen 4 years, 5 years in a row, and I could never make it happen, primarily because every time they reached out to me, my calendar was already booked. It was just already booked. And when my calendar gets too booked, sometimes it's like, look, I don't want to do another job. If I'm going to do another job, I'm going to have to charge more because that's so much time away from my family. What's the benefit? And I choose just to not do that. I'm not going to charge more. I'm just going to decline. But I ended up in a situation where I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But I kept telling them, I want to do it. I want to do it. I just can't. So 2 years ago, we put 2024 on the calendar. So for 2 years, I had this scheduled. I'm thrilled to be able to finally go out there and speak at this conference. But it's things like that, I mean, what if I said no? I can come out, but it's in between days. I could come out, but it's going to be $15,000. What?
Yeah.
No, sounds like my family song. Provide great value for people. Provide great value for people, but do it at a reasonable cost and price. And in a fire service, what's our cost and our price? Listen, the taxpayers pay us. People say they're not customers. They are customers. They are customers. They pay for our equipment. They pay if you're a career department. They pay for your salaries, your benefits. If you're a volunteer, they still pay for your equipment and everything else. So provide value in return.
Yeah.
So anyway, and there's the pool, by the way. Matter of fact, I'll show you since we came out again.
Yeah, why not?
I'll show you. I'll show you. So you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this part here that you could see that's colored a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
$10,000 for that he wanted.
Huh.
But this other guy said, "Man, you're gonna have to do this panel too." So just slightly over $3,000. But the pool looks good, so I'm happy with the end result.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's it. And some people say, well, why didn't you just do it yourself? Because if I did this myself, I probably, in the process of doing myself, I would have ended up breaking this, and then I would need, and because I'm not licensed or insured, I would end up messing myself up and having to redo it all again. That's why I didn't do it myself.
Yeah, I got to fix concrete steps in my house, and I don't.
Well, I know a good guy.
Yeah, well, if he's coming to Illinois, maybe.
Hey,
that's a haul, but
I'm Italian. I got a guy for everything.
Yeah,
at this
right.
point. All right, let's get to your questions because my family's about to come in and chaos is about to ensue.
I was just gonna say, let's get back to our families. So we'll do these closing. I got 4 closing ones, and then we'll wrap. So, what's one mistake that you made and learned from over the course of your career?
I guess one mistake that I made is first one that comes to mind is I talked too much. Let me explain what I mean by that. I wanted to fit in with certain groups, and so I'd watch what they do, and certain groups were kind of very opinionated about people. But like, for example, sometimes there were guys that when one of them was off duty, they would talk about him, and it would be kind of negative talk. And I would be surprised by that. I'm like, why are they talking negatively about someone I thought was their friend? Maybe they're not really friends. But sometimes when you're really, really good friends, you talk negatively about each other because it's just kind of jokes and stuff. And although I wasn't kind of part of that clique, they were all older than me. Sometimes I would participate in that because I wanted to fit in. And sometimes I'd realize, hey, like when I got older, I got to realize I had no business being a part of a conversation or two. I should have just kept my opinion to myself. I've learned to do that a lot more now. I'm still an opinionated person, but be careful about the circles you run your mouth in, because this is what I came to learn. Um, Something you say about somebody, whatever you say about somebody, is going to get to them. And I'm teaching my kids this right now. You may not like a certain person, but just keep it to yourself. Because some people that you may not like years down the line may end up becoming some of your best friends because you just misunderstood them. And I've had that happen too. So I think if I could go back, I would listen more than I talked, learn more, and not try to act like I knew more or was smarter or you know more experienced than I actually was, because people know. So that's just the first one that comes to mind when you ask the question.
Ah, I love the advice. Uh, have you ever lost your passion for the fire service, and what keeps you passionate now? What'd you do to get it back?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I went in cycles, but I think that's because what we do in life. It happens in various areas of your life, and it's one of those things where I think when you lose your passion for the fire service, it has less to do with the nature of the work and more to do with certain situations that are happening around work. Like, oh, you know what? If it becomes too negative, and there's multiple things that could happen to where a work environment could become negative. When I talked earlier about culture, how your stomach and heart feel, um, Sunday night when you're thinking about going to work Monday morning, I went through a period where it was in knots. My stomach was in knots. My anxiety was through the roof because I was just like, I don't want to. I mean, my wife one time said to me, don't take this the wrong way, but you become a jerk every day before you go to work. And she didn't mean that morning of. She meant the day before. And I needed to hear that. I didn't want to hear it because what she said is, I know why, because you have to deal with X, Y, and Z. But why do you have to take it out on us, the people who love you? So I needed to take that advice and say, my gosh, she's right. What can I can't take this home. I can't take it home. I need to deal with what I need to deal with at work. But all in all, getting your passion back is simple. It's getting around people who love the fire service. It's getting to conferences. It's getting to seminars, events, reading a book, listen to a podcast, listen to somebody who's passionate and fired up about the fire service. All of a sudden you get passionate. Man, I love when people come to my seminars. I'm not kidding you. I love when people come to my seminars and they either say to me right afterwards, or I get an email message or a social media message afterwards saying, you reignited my passion. I'm so fired up. I just got this message recently from a buddy out. I don't want to say where he's from, but I'm going to just say this. He's from California. I won't say what department. He said, thank you so much for coming out. I was on the verge of retiring, but I have new life now because you breathed that into me. He said, I'm so excited. And that I love. That I love. Get around people that can fire you up.
Awesome advice. Yeah. Uh, if you wanted to give someone a sense of how the fire, or I'm sorry, if you wanted to give someone a sense of how fire service culture should work by meeting one person, who would it be? So you're going to take someone that knows nothing about the fire service, a new person, a politician, a family member, and it could be anyone, still with us or gone or whatever, anyone, one person.
I'd have to say my father. I'd say my father. He loved the job more than anyone. And I'm lucky I still have him with me. But he loves the job, always did, was extremely passionate, loved coming to work, loved helping people, was all about service. And somebody once said this to me, and I'll never forget it. If we if we had more people like your father in the world would be so much better. And it's the truth. He's just a really good-hearted person that will also stand up and fight for what he believes in. And that's what a firefighter does. You take care of people, but you fight for what you believe in. Because if you don't have fight in you, it's not a good, you're not going to have a successful incident when it does occur. You know, you have that fight in you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, last one. What is the best part of the job?
The kitchen table. The kitchen table. You get to help people. Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, it's good salary, benefits. There's a pension involved with most organizations. All that stuff's good. You get to ride on the big red fire engine. Man, that's awesome. You get to train. No 2 days are the same. Every day you come to work, it's different. It's not an office job. What's the call today? What are we going to? Are we prepared? Are we not prepared? Um, but you have something called the kitchen table at the firehouse. Yes, the food can be really good there, better than most restaurants when you got the right person. You got a guy like a Jerry Capola who I worked with, or a Jack Pettigrew cooking. You know it's going to be a great meal. Um, but it's more so about the conversations. Politically incorrect sometimes, but what happens is this: you're sitting down with a group of people who have experienced what you have experienced. You're sitting down with a group of people that will break your stones when you're feeling the worst about yourself. And in some odd way, it makes you feel great about yourself because you know they really care about you, or they wouldn't do it. They love you. And they don't say things like, hey, I love you, man. Some of them do. I did. Some of them say it. But you know they love you by the way they treat you. Because you know that if you really sat down and said, hey, man, I need to talk, guess what? Come on up here. Let's talk. And it's one on one with someone who will go to war with you, who has been in a foxhole with you, who will lay down their life with you and for you. It's a bond like no other. So when you're at that kitchen table, you're with these brothers and sisters that are living a life that no one else can understand until you live it. So the jokes will fly. Um, the conversations are going to happen, and some of them are excellent, and some of them need to be shut down really quick because they're going in the wrong direction. But at the end of the day, there's nothing like it. It's what I love the most about the fire service, and it's what I miss the most. And I think you will too when you retire.
Many, many years from now, but yes.
Yep.
Well, Chief, I appreciate you coming on, chatting with me, and sharing everything. And I know that a lot of people will resonate with a lot of what you had to say today. And go spend time with your family. I'm going to do the same. And I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Everybody take care. Alex, we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate you. I'll see you around.
All right, take care.
Take care.